Hello and welcome back to How to Homeschool in High School, the podcast focused on encouraging and equipping you to homeschool through high school. I'm your host, Nadine Loffer, and on this episode number 25, we get to talk with someone really, really incredible, homeschool graduate Millie Florence. Thank you all so much for your patience in this month break that we've had from the podcast. The last episode I released was September 2nd. Drastically too long. I apologize. It's been kind of a whirlwind of school and senior stuff, and wow, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that, not prepared in a podcasting review and in time. It's currently like 10 p.m. right now, but here we are, and I cannot wait to share this interview with you. It has been long awaiting and filled with so much encouragement. I left this conversation with such a big smile on my face. I just cannot wait to share it with you. So here we are. And for those of you who do not know who Millie Florence is, let me introduce you to her. She is a homeschool graduate. Currently, she's a full-time author. She published 3 books, one of which will come out in a few days from now. I believe it is October 17th. And she published her first book when she was only 13 years old, which I don't know about you. I was not publishing books when I was 13. So it's incredible. It really is. She's so talented. She's so smart. She's so joyful. I mean, pretty much embodies every single attribute of homeschoolers that I absolutely love and admire in one person. There's so much to learn from what Millie has to say, and I think it pretty much is impossible to walk away from this conversation without a smile on your face. I dare you to try. It's going to be kind of impossible. And I thoroughly enjoyed recording this episode. I hope you thoroughly enjoy listening to it. I mean, it's right mid-semester, we're pushing through, we're grinding on. It's the hardest part of the year to homeschool. One of the hardest parts is just the end of this first semester. So let's go get some encouragement together and just, learn more about homeschooling and just learn more about this amazing, inspiring homeschooler, and hopefully encourages us to pursue our dreams as well. So let's get right into this episode. All right, thank you so much for being here today, Millie. And I got the privilege of meeting you at the convention in, what was it, April, I think? Yeah.
Yeah, Cincinnati, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the first time I've ever heard of your books and all your publishing. It was amazing, and I was so excited when you agreed to be on the podcast, and it's an honor to talk to you today.
It's an honor to be here. I was saying it to you just before we started recording, but I love that there is a podcast specifically for homeschool teens, because most homeschool podcasts are directed at the moms, or there are some for younger kids. So I love that you are filling that niche in the market. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you so much. And I couldn't do it without people like you willing to come and share and talk and encourage us. So thank you again for doing this.
Of course.
Okay, so usually I always start out by asking my guests to share their homeschooling journey. So when did you start homeschooling, and how long did you start? How long did you start? Oh my goodness. How long were you homeschooled for?
I've been homeschooled my entire life. I've never done a day of traditional school in that regard, and I graduated a few years ago. So I'm officially a homeschool graduate, and I've done it. My entire educational career has been homeschooling. So,
and do you remember why your parents initially started homeschooling?
It was for a few reasons. When we were younger, it was because they wanted to give us more of an individualized education, because they recognize, every kid is completely different, and trying to teach them all the same thing, that's not going to work for every kid in the same way, right? Yeah. I think my parents also, they didn't have particularly bad experiences in public school, but they definitely saw what was lacking, and they felt like they could do a better job. There were specific parts of public school that they felt like could be improved upon. And then as we got older, it morphed more into being about giving us the opportunity to pursue things that we were passionate about, because I'm the oldest of 5 kids, so there's a lot of us, and we all have things that we've come to love and be passionate about. For me, it's writing. For one of my brothers, it's drone racing. For another, it is soccer. My sister is really into art and drawing, and my youngest sister right now is very, very into nature and animals and learning about that. And so having an education that was directed by the things we were most interested in not only made for a great education, but it allowed us to pursue these more career-based things. And that is the reason I was able to publish and write books at such a young age, was because they, people often ask me, like, how do you homeschool and how did you write books? The truth is they were kind of one and the same, especially when I was 12 and 13. Like, I got high school credit for writing my books and publishing them and writing business emails to, podcasts and blogs, and figuring out the whole business side of things is an education in and of itself. Anyway, I'm rambling. That is our why, basically. Yeah. Because of an individualized education and to pursue the things we love.
Yeah, and wow, I love that so much. And there's something so powerful in being able to almost lead your own learning as a child, just fall in love with these things and being able to pursue them as much as you want. There's something so beautiful about that, and it makes school less of a boring sort of thing and more of an exciting personal, this is where I get to discover what I love to do and what I can do forever. So I just love that you're able to take that and then make it your future career, which is, I'm excited to talk about that as well. So you kind of already answered this question, but how did you do, since this is a high school podcast, how did you guys do high school? So I'm pretty sure there's probably a lot of writing involved with your high school experience.
Yeah, it was a little different. So I graduated a year early, and that was not on purpose. One day my mom was like, we should probably count up how many high school credits you have. And I had 1.5 left or something to get. Yeah. So I ended up graduating early because of that. So it's interesting that you say oh, how did you do high school? I'm like, oh, which years were high school again? Because for several of them, I thought I was just middle school, but I was doing stuff that we realized later could be counted as high school credits. I did a couple years of classical conversations. I don't know if you've heard of that. But yes, it was very self-directed. My mom likes to describe our homeschool experience as delight-directed, is how she puts it. Definitely when we got into high school, though, that was when we got to you actually need to finish these workbooks or whatever and get through the more traditional stuff. So I would say our schooling became a little more traditional in high school because there's more to keep track of then, and you're learning more complex things. We did two years of classical conversations. My siblings did more. There were things I liked and didn't like about it. I did Latin, a lot of different things. Another way my mom describes our homeschool is eclectic. So we don't really have one particular curriculum we stick to. We kind of use a different one depending on the kid and the time in our life and just what works best for us. So in high school, while it was a little bit more curriculum based for me, I did jump around a lot. And I think that was an advantage rather than a disadvantage, because it allowed me to really dig into the things I was passionate about. Yeah,
we do very similar, kind of a bit of everything. We try something new every year, kind of keeps it interesting, keeps it fun, and then it also, when we do find a good curriculum, we normally we'll stick with it or do other things by the same author. So I love that. And how was the co-op CC experience for you? It was probably very different from what you'd done before, or was it kind of
well, I've done co-ops my whole life. Classical Conversations was definitely the first one that had any assignments involved. Because in the past, the co-ops I'd done had always been field trip co-ops or book club co-ops. So Classical Conversations was very different from what I had done before. There are things I liked about it. There are things I didn't like about it. I think overall it was a great experience for me. I remember they have like in one of the older years that I did, one of the assignments is to write a short story. And having already like written and published 2 books at this point, I was just able to completely like I finished it in a week or something.
Yeah.
So it depends on the person. I've known a lot of people that classical conversations has worked
Yeah.
very well for.
Yeah.
For me, it was a bit of a mixed bag, but overall
Mhm.
I would say I enjoyed it. So
Yeah, that's good. And I mean, honestly, it depends on everyone and the different ways that you enjoy learning. And for some people, it's very nice to have that structure, but then other people just don't need it, because you have your own rhythm at home. So that's awesome that you guys just explore
yeah,
different things.
and I'm glad you brought that up actually, because being able to be self-directed and
Mm,
self-disciplined is actually a super valuable skill I believe is one of the most valuable skills I learned from being homeschooled,
yeah.
is to be self-motivated. And if you can't have that, obviously there are some people who need more structure. But I think if you're homeschooled, you should take that opportunity to learn how to be self-motivated to complete whatever tasks, that your parents have assigned, or, find your own thing to learn. Because there are so many adults, and I'm learning this now that I'm an adult,
Hmm.
who don't have that skill, like
Hmm.
how to be self-motivated, how to teach yourself things. That is a far more valuable skill than I think many people realize.
Yeah. Especially in this day and age when, we have, I mean, I think with the conventional schooling rhythm, you're being told what to do every day, and then you go to college, and it's the same thing. You're being told what to do every day, and then all of a sudden you're in the workforce, and you have to like manage your own time, and it's without that skill, like it's rare. And even when you're doing homework, like having that motivation to get what you need to get done first, or get it done, is something that I have developed as well, as just being able to manage my own time, which takes time to learn too. But
It
as homeschoolers,
does.
we're learning it from like a really young age, because we have a lot more time on our hands.
Absolutely. I would say that homeschooling transitions far more seamlessly into a career than what public school teaches and the rhythm of public school.
Yeah. Yeah, so you brought up writing and publishing a book at what, you were 13 whenever you did
I
it?
was 13, yes.
That is, I can't wait to talk about that. So, when did you like start writing and know that you wanted to like publish it?
I was just talking to my mom about this the other day, that we actually are not entirely sure.
Mm,
I was so young. I have been telling stories for as long as I can remember. One of my earliest memories is of laying awake at night under the covers, whispering stories to myself when I was supposed to be asleep,
mhm.
which I'm sure my parents loved. Um, and yeah, I still have a lot of old documents full of stories from,
Oh,
we've tracked it down from context clues, even as young as age 3 or 4.
wow.
So I can't really remember a time in my life when I didn't love writing stories. And I can't really either remember a specific time where I decided I'm going to publish books. Publishing books just always felt like the natural next step, because
Yeah,
what's the point of a story if you're not going to share it with others? So I
exactly.
think that's kind of always something I wanted to do from the moment that I heard, oh, this is what people who write stories do. I was like, well, obviously, I'm going to do that.
Mhm. Yeah. It's really amazing. And you also mentioned the self-directed, like being able to instigate your own schedule and get things done on your own time and learn things on your own. So how did you even go about publishing? Like, was that something that you had to do research for yourself and like reach out to people yourself, like being like a young teenager?
Yes, absolutely. So for ages and ages, I struggled to even finish a single book.
Mm.
And that was the main thing that held me back from looking at publishing, was the fact that I had nothing to publish, right?
Mhm.
And that is a whole story in and of itself. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel about how I finally finished a book and
Mm.
what was involved in that. But once I finished my first book, the first draft of the book, which the story that would later become Honey Butter, my first
Mhm.
published novel. when I finished the first draft, that was around the time that I started really researching publishing and doing the deep dive. And this is what I mentioned earlier when I said, oh, knowing how to teach yourself something is also really, really valuable. Because yes, I had to teach myself how to publish. And it took just hunting down every possible book at the library and blogs about publishing and podcasts and YouTube videos. But it was all free, which I think is important to state, because some people are like, oh, how did you learn all this? And I'll always be like, well, I have the exact same resources that you do, because everyone has the internet. And I 100% learned how to publish from the internet. And it was all completely free. It did take a lot of self-discipline. But yes, so it was around that time that I started looking into that and discovering self-publishing. I self-published my first book, and I used Ingram Spark as my distributor. Those are two terms. You can go research Google if you want, if there are any aspiring authors listening. So yes, I did teach myself, and it was mostly online.
Wow. That takes a lot of dedication to be able to do that too. So I struggle with podcasting and schoolwork, balancing the two of them, making sure I get enough schoolwork done to be able to do my podcast well, but also like make time to do this in the middle of the day whenever I have schoolwork. So I didn't know how your writing and balancing your schoolwork was like for you.
So it depended on the time. I think usually my goal was to do all my schoolwork in the morning and then have the afternoons to write. Now, did I always stick to that? No. Life gets chaotic, as I'm sure you know. So I don't think there was ever like one set formula for like, yeah, that's how I got it done. I think what drove me to make the time for it was just because I was so passionate about it. And I had decided that this was something that was important to me. So I made the time for it. And that's the key. You have to make the time for stuff like that rather than letting, because if you don't, what is the phrase? If you don't, oh, I'm gonna mess it up. It's something like, if you don't control your day, then your day will control you, or something. Basically, like, if you're not intentional about how you spend your time, then it'll go in a million different little places, like scrolling on Instagram or just doing things you don't need to do. So I don't think, sadly, there's one specific like key to here is how to make the time for writing. I think you just have to be really intentional about it. So
yeah, I totally get that. I love the intentionality idea. I'm gonna write that down somewhere, because I find if I'm not purposeful, if I don't have a plan, even when I get up in the morning, it just like time just passes me by and I don't even realize I'm like not doing anything. But when I like go to bed and I'm like, oh, tomorrow morning I'm gonna wake up and do my devotionals and start my schoolwork by 8, and I'm like, when I wake up, I know what I'm gonna do. Just having that plan out, it just makes your life so much easier. I was like, whoa, I actually got it done. But I just had to be intentional in doing it.
Well, and even like you mentioned, like deciding on that the night before is really helpful. What was it? My parents and I were talking about this at some point during our devotional or whatever, is that in the Jewish tradition in the Bible, a day began at sunset. So that gave me a whole new perspective on the idea of like, oh, you start your day right. Maybe the start of my day needs to be that night and be intentional about how you're looking towards the next day. And I think that also, makes you be intentional about like, well, if I'm starting my day right, that also means like getting sleep when I'm supposed to, right?
Yes. I love that, because I so often I think like at the end of the day, I kind of just let myself do whatever I want, kind of because I lose that intentionality over the day. But if you think about the fact that you're setting yourself up for tomorrow by like doing helpful things at night and like going to bed early. Changes that really that stuck with me. Wow. Yeah, that hopefully that'll make me do things a little differently.
Yeah. I found it to be a helpful perspective. So.
Yeah. So would that be like, do you have any other advice for like structuring homeschool days? I know I get that sometimes, and I struggle with that too. So I didn't know if you had anything to say.
So it depends on the person. I know for me, the way I structured my days, especially in high school, once I had a larger workload, is there were always two subjects that I would do every day.
Mhm.
And for me, that was Latin and math, because those were the things that needed the most time
Mhm.
and I really needed to stay consistent with. But then I did one subject a day for the 5 days a week in addition to those two subjects that I did every day. That way I could really give myself the time to focus on that one subject.
Mhm.
And because I think for me, if I tried to do all of them in the same day and just a little bit of each one, I wouldn't do a great job at any of them.
Mhm.
Whereas if and this is even a concept I've read about in lots of like productivity books called like time blocking,
Mhm.
um, basically where it takes a certain amount of mental capacity to switch between subjects or between tasks.
Yeah.
So if you focus on just one, you get up to speed, up to mental like capacity with that one task, and you're in it, and you get in the flow state. You don't want to break that once you're in flow.
Mhm.
So that's what I found to be helpful, was to spend larger chunks of time, but less of those large chunks of time on subjects, rather than trying to do a little bit every day. But it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that principle has also helped me a lot in even after I graduated, when it comes to I am writing full time, but when you're an author full time, you're not just writing, you're also
Mhm.
doing marketing and podcast interviews like this
Mhm.
and all sorts of other things. So using that approach as well, of like focusing on one thing at a time and not switching too much. And then there's something else that my dad always says, which I think is super helpful,
Mhm.
which is go where the energy is. So if you're
Mhm.
feeling particularly excited to do a certain thing, so for example, homeschool, like if you feel particularly excited or inspired about an essay that you're supposed to write,
Mhm.
do that. Even if there's something else more urgent that you need to do. Like maybe you missed your math lesson yesterday, but if you are really excited about that essay, you should do that, because you'll do a really good job at it while you're inspired, and you can
Yeah.
get to the math afterwards. So following that energy
Mm.
will make you more productive.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because sometimes I wake up and I'm like really excited about like the science lesson I'm gonna do, and I just think
Yeah.
while you're in the, you're wanting to do it, why don't you just go ahead and get it done, and then you can
Yeah.
jump over to other things. And I love the whole blocking your time like with greater intensity over a longer period of time. Like I
Yeah.
think like running.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you're constantly switching direction, it's very hard on like even like we're playing soccer right now and we have to practice that, like switching direction quickly instead of just like constantly running in one motion. And you found you can run better, if you're running in one direction instead of so much energy is expended in, obviously in soccer you need to
Right.
do it. But I can see in schoolwork how spending maybe 2 hours on one subject with like breaks will help you be able to get deeper into it than constantly switching every 30 minutes like
Right. Exactly.
conventional
Yeah.
schooling has you doing all the time. I mean, I can't imagine how much hard because right as of right now, because I'm taking upper level classes, at the end of high school, I spent a
Mhm.
lot more time in one subject a day than I did before, and I had been worried that I wasn't doing enough. So that even inspired me right now just to think, you can dive a little deeper when you spend a little more time on it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that was helpful.
yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one listening who found that helpful, but yeah, that's a very interesting thought, just thinking about how to manage your time. Everyone is different, and I love hearing from other people because sometimes my methods don't work, and I talk about them a lot, so it's important to hear other people's methods as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And one last thing
mhm,
before we move
yeah,
on. If there are any homeschool students who are into that sort of like productivity mindset and learning more
yeah.
about that and how to use their time well, I would highly recommend the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Mhm.
I don't know. You're nodding. Have you read that?
My dad just got it, and I told him I
Oh,
always wanted to
okay.
read it, and so he's reading it right now. I'm gonna read it after. Hmm.
Yeah, it's a great book. It talks about similar stuff to what I talked about and a ton of other very, very helpful
Hmm.
stuff. Anything I've said, I'm sure is said much better in Atomic Habits. So
Well, yeah, you know what? My Instagram, I'm like really into that right now. My Instagram feed is like all productivity and sometimes it's exhausting, but usually they're very inspiring. But I've always wanted to read that book, so I will definitely do that now. And I know a lot of my friends have been asking about that, so thank you for sharing that. I will recommend it to them as well. So now that oh yeah, you mentioned that you're writing full time. How has homeschooling prepared you? Do you feel like you're prepared for your future? Some people are wondered, like, does homeschooling successfully prepare you for, life after high school?
Oh yeah, at like 100%. I don't remember if I've said this already on the podcast, but I think being homeschooled like transitions much better into a career than
Mhm.
public school. I think we did talk about this.
I think a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that when you're in public school, you constantly have people, make sure you turn this in on time, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Whereas within a career, even if you're working like at an office, your time is much more self-directed.
Mhm.
And homeschooling has definitely taught me how to be self-directed and self-motivated.
I do agree with that because, we have to be able to manage our time on our own and be self-instigated to complete tasks. Um, so with homeschooling, I was just very curious because you are doing, you do a lot of interviews and you speak a lot. I mean, you were at all the conventions that you were at every single homeschooling convention this year or almost all of them?
I was at 3. I
Three, okay.
believe I will be at all of them next year.
Oh,
So
nice. Um, Homeschoolers, we naturally just look different from other people. Has that ever have you ever been afraid to look different because of your homeschooling? Like, have you ever gotten like questions? I know a lot of people get questions about like, oh, why would you homeschool? It just seems so weird
yeah,
to do
or
that.
the classic, how do you make friends?
Oh,
I think we're all
oh
tired of
yes.
that one. I just find that question so ironic because it's not like adults ask that question of other adults who work from home. Like,
Yeah.
once you're an adult, there's no expectation that your entire social life is the office.
Mhm.
So, why is it that when you're a teen, there's this idea that if you like, where else could you possibly make friends but at school,
Yeah.
right? I just
It's
find so
true.
funny. Yeah, no, I have encountered some of that. Um, Usually from like other kids my age.
Mhm.
Um, and I know I've never felt too subconscious about
Mhm.
it. I mean, I think if they're that in like I think it says more about them and how insecure they are of their own
Mhm.
experience if they're coming down on you and your homeschooling experience, which is frustrating because everyone has a different path. And for some
Mhm.
people, public school works really, really well. It shouldn't be like, I think a lot of people can view it as like, oh, you think you're better than me because you're a homeschooler, when
Mhm.
in reality, that is not the case.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's often the attitude which will lead to not so nice comments, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or they just don't understand it.
Mhm.
No, but the whole making friends thing, I think is also a testament to how well homeschooling prepares you for life as an adult and having a career. Because, like I just said, no one asks adults who work from home, "Oh, how do you make friends?" Right?
Mhm.
Like the expectation once you're an adult is that you take responsibility and initiative for your own social life, and that's something you're already learning as a homeschooler. Because once you're an
Mhm.
adult, it's not built into your life like it maybe was in public school. So no, I've always seen it as an advantage. I'll be honest, I'm the kid who, especially when I was younger, I really liked to be different.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I never minded it.
Yeah.
I looked down on public schoolers maybe a little bit more than I should have when I was younger. So
And honestly, everything you said was exactly what I think. It's just you communicated it so much better than I have been able to. It's so true that, we have initiative over our social life and there's something that we're learning about that through that we actually have to go out and we have to talk to people. Like we have to be the ones that introduce ourselves and sometimes that was really hard for me to learn. But now that I have learned it, I
that's a
can
life
walk into
skill, yeah.
exactly I can walk into a room and introduce myself and be okay with the fact that, I'm doing the initiating of this conversation. It's
Exactly.
it's helped me so much. But it was a little painful to learn, and without my mom like forcing me into social, and like she would take us to every single event when we moved here, because we left our homeschooling community and we had to
Yeah.
from scratch. So we went to every single homeschooling event, even if we didn't necessarily want to do like the painting or whatever we were doing.
Yeah.
And she constantly forced us into that environment and made us talk to people and, present ourselves. And it's the best thing. So I think that's where people get don't clearly understand what homeschooling really is. It's just that parents are taking control of your social life, not like in a weird way.
Well, it's you taking control
Exactly.
of your social life,
yeah.
right? And if there are homeschoolers who are like don't have as many friends, that's really more on them. Like you can choose to go out and make initiative. And obviously, I know that's difficult.
Yeah.
I think everyone has that instance of making friends can be hard, but I don't think homeschooling puts you at a disadvantage when it comes to that at all. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, thanks for talking about that. I know some people, and I encounter it. I encounter the hate comments in the chat and everything. Not the chat.
Yeah.
The comments of posts that I make sometimes, and that's very common and everyone has seen. I know sometimes homeschooling cannot be the greatest experience for some people and their families. So like
everyone's homeschooling experience is so different,
Yeah.
and every individual is so different. So yeah, it can be tough. It's a little bit cheesy, but I always think of the Dr. Seuss quote. What is it? Be who you are and say how you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You're just a wealth of information.
Thank you.
Amazing quotes. I love that. I'm literally going to put that on my story at one point when we release this episode. I love that so much.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
I have it's a lesson in like kind of not caring what other people think about you, which I'm still very much. I'm more of the self-conscious, like, oh, I'm definitely like weird in this situation, or I'm a homeschooler, so I'm a little bit different than everyone else. I'm a little more like that. So quotes like that and talking to you really helped me just be more confident in that sort of like being different sort of thing, and not caring as much about what other people think, because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I'm so glad. That's awesome.
And so that was really what I wanted to talk about with homeschooling, but I also wanted to talk about you're a full-time writer and you're publishing a new book in October, which I also wanted to hear some about, which is congratulations, by the way. That's really amazing.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited. It's coming out October 17th. When this episode comes out, it'll just be a few days away that the book will be coming out, which is very exciting.
Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about it? Let me see. The Balter of Ashton Harper, right? Ashton Harper?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. And Balter is a little-known English word that means to dance artlessly without particular grace or skill, but usually with enjoyment. And the book is a middle grade historical fantasy novel set in the Regency era. So imagine like Jane Austen, but with magic and adventure.
That's so fun.
Yes. And it's the story of 12-year-old Ashton Harper. He is the middle child, a brother squished between two sisters. So he has an older sister and a younger sister, which he usually finds quite annoying, but he would also do anything for, as brothers are wont to do. And he is a ballroom dancer with his younger sister, Zizi. They have always loved to dance, been very passionate about it. And when the story begins, he gets the opportunity to audition to be accepted into his dream school for dancing, the Overmorrow Academy of Arts. But on the way there, they stumble across some old magic that perhaps would have been better left untouched, and it causes some chaos that stalls their journey. And I don't want to spoil any more than that, but it's a story. It's a great story about, chasing your dreams. That I think that was the big thing I wanted to explore in the story as a kid who had big dreams growing up and is chasing them now. I really wanted to kind of explore that theme of, Are dreams, like, what makes dreams worth dreaming? Are dreams only worth dreaming if they come true, or is there some other quality about having goals and dreams and passions that makes them valuable? And what is it like to be a kid with big dreams and encountering challenges that make you feel discouraged? And, how do you overcome that? So it definitely came from, a lot of the themes of the book definitely came from a personal place, as you can probably tell. But it was also just a wonderful, wonderful time. I love Ashton Harper so much. He is, I joke with all my writer friends, he's a little sarcastic bean. I love his internal dialogue. He was just so much fun to write, and his interactions with his sisters. If you have siblings, you will relate. So yeah, that's the basics of what the book is about. When this podcast comes out, it will still be up for pre-order for a few days. And I want to say, if you pre-order it, so if you order it before the 17th when the book comes out, then I will sign your copy, because I am signing all of the pre-orders.
Oh, wow.
For the book. Yes, which is very exciting. So if you want to get a signed copy, order it now. So
that sounds like such a fun book. I am so excited to read it. And this, I can imagine, how many have you signed already? Like, is it hard to sign all those books?
I actually haven't signed any of them yet, because my publisher lives in a different state than me.
Okay.
And we have an event right before the release where they will bring all the books for me to sign. So I haven't signed any of them yet, but I will be signing them early October. I'll be signing all of the pre-orders. So
that sounds like a fun day. It sounds like
yes, I'm sure it will. I've never signed a ton of books in a row. Like, I do book signings, obviously, but it's usually at least like 30 minutes, talking to people between signing books. So I'll always see the like Instagram videos of authors like signing this huge pile of books, and I'm excited to get to experience that for the first time ever. So
how fun. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's like a check off of my author bucket list.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted also to mention on the themes in your book, which the dreaming and the, hitting obstacles in your dreams and keep like the courage to keep going. I think that's so important. I don't know, especially with like social media right now, there's a lot of people sharing, they're fulfilling their dreams, and it's very easy to just think that there's no in between, because it's harder to share on social media, like that hard part where you kind of have to work hard. I think that's so important to talk about too. Sometimes I think like that. I'm like, oh, they did it and it looks so easy almost, and then I do it and it's really hard. And I think talking about the fact that things can be hard, but just because they're hard doesn't mean they're not worth doing. It's very important.
Absolutely. And that's the whole idea in the Balter of Ashton Harper. So but that's definitely true. And I think you have to remember that what you're seeing on social media is people's highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
That's the top points, which I think is generally like as it should be. I'm not one to advocate of like you should spill every detail about your life on social media, if for no other reason than safety. both like privacy and like emotional safety. So I think you should remember that. And I also think it's so important to make those highlight reels yourself, like to look back and celebrate how far you have come, right? Yeah. Because that does take so much effort. So celebrate the little wins, the big wins, everything in between, I think. Because when you're passionate about stuff, and I'm definitely like guilty of this, it can be so hard to like actually be proud of yourself, because you set these standards that are sometimes even like almost impossible to reach, and you have to take a step back and realize how far you've come. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's so important. I love when people do that too. It just inspires me as well. To keep going. And what is that the one thing you want readers to take away from when they read your book?
The one thing that I want readers to take away when they read The Balter of Ashton Harper, I think it's a bit of a spoiler. So I don't know if I can say it. You'll have to read the book. It is along those lines, but if I were to say it, it would 100% spoil the ending.
Oh yeah, so we don't want that.
No, we don't want to get into that. But generally, like when looking at my books in general, I think I want my readers to walk away with a sense of hope. that is always my goal with my
Yeah.
books, because especially in this day and age, there's so much fiction out there with like, morally gray characters and stuff, which I
Mm.
think is great. I actually
Mhm.
love morally gray characters and writing that. But I
Yeah.
think if it's not written from a place of hope, it can be just a little sad and a little
Yeah.
depressing. I think we need more stories of hope in this world. So that's a big part of what I'm trying to do as an
Yeah.
author. I want every story of mine, even if it has a bittersweet ending, which I don't want to spoil anything, but some of mine do. Some of mine do have bittersweet endings.
Mhm.
I always want it to end in hope.
Yeah.
So
That's so, my dad always talks about that. How stories, like good stories that people love, they always end with hope. And it's
yeah,
so important. And I do feel that even in like young adult literature right now, there's so much, there's just not a lot of hope out there. And so thank you
yeah,
for writing and like filling that void. I know there are a lot of people who need more stories like that. And the world definitely needs more stories like that. And everything you post, everything you share is just filled with light and hope. And so it really, really
thank
makes a
you.
difference.
Yeah, of course. And this is something my mom has said a lot. I feel like I'm sharing so much wisdom from my parents. No, but
That's
something my
awesome.
mom says, I think she read it somewhere, and this is used as like a principle for conversation, but I think it applies to books as well, is
Mhm.
people do not remember what you said. They will remember how you made them feel. And
Mhm.
I think the stories that will be remembered are the ones that will make you feel hopeful.
Yeah, that's very powerful too. Yeah, and it does very much apply to hope, to books, not to hope. Well, hope also included in that, but to
Hopeful
books.
books.
Yeah, exactly. I remember how books made me feel, and that's why I like to share them, because they filled me with encouragement or hope at the end, and I want other people to feel that as well. So, yeah, it's very true. I think my dad says that sometimes too to me whenever we're talking about that sort of thing. So, yeah, so much wisdom from the parents. We love it.
Yes, yes. Listen to your parents, kids.
And so where can readers, oh my goodness, well, readers included, but where can listeners find you on social media and find your books as well?
So the main place I always send everyone is my website,
Mm.
millieflorence.com, because all my links to everything else are there. If you want to find my social media, if you want to buy my books, pre-order Balter, sign up for my email newsletter, everything's there.
Mhm.
I'm also on Instagram. I am on YouTube. Those are the two I put the most time into. I'm on Facebook, if your mom
Mm.
wants to follow me. uh,
So true. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I'm on social media. You can find me. My username is usually Millie Florence author. So, and then yeah, you can go to my website if you want to find the direct links to everything. So
Cool. And then you say you will be also attending the Great Homeschool Conventions in the future?
I will be, yes, I will be going to all of the Great Homeschool conventions, I believe, in 2024, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I constantly talk about Great Homeschool Conventions because when we first went, I was like, why haven't we done this before? We actually went
Oh,
on
it's
spring break, which is like, how do you know you're homeschooled without telling me you're homeschooled? You go to homeschool
right.
convention on spring break. It was like the best spring break trip that we took.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's a great experience and it's a great community. I've really enjoyed it. So
Yeah, so if you're looking for another reason to go to a homeschool convention, go and meet Millie Florence, and you have all your books there as well. Usually you sold out like of a lot of them, right?
I have sold out a lot of the times that I am there.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Which is another reason I love that convention. But yes, come see me if
Yes.
you're at Great Homeschool Conventions. I love talking to readers and writers and homeschoolers. It's my favorite part of the day. So
Yeah, it's so fun.
absolutely come find
And
me.
I'm gonna
So
link everything in the show notes as well. So your website and then also like your social medias as well. So you can go and check that out as well. I said as well like 15 times right there. It's probably a record. Anyway, do you have any other advice, anything else you want to share before we close out?
I think the big thing that I hope anyone listening takes away from the podcast is just like you are in you have a very cool opportunity being a homeschooler. And I think you should try to use that to its fullest potential because it has so much potential and you have so much potential. And yeah, go out there, chase your dreams, buy the Balter of Ashton Harper
Yeah.
so that it can inspire you to chase your dreams.
I love the tagline. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course, gotta get that marketing in there.
Yep. Thank you so much for doing this today and for taking the time 2 days in a row to record the podcast. I know people are going to be very inspired. I am inspired. Yeah, thank you. We need more voices in the homeschooling wilderness sharing their experience and chasing their dreams. It's very important. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, of course. And thank you for having me. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we were able to chat.
Yeah, me too. What an amazing episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And thanks to Millie. Shout out to her for taking time. We actually had to record 2 days in a row because of scheduling and internet malfunctions. So she was really kind, really considerate, and really was flexible with me in scheduling this and rescheduling it. So I am thoroughly grateful for her taking the time to do this. And you know, I think we should take her advice and take her encouragement and say, we are going to take advantage of every single opportunity we are presented as homeschoolers, because it really is a wonderful opportunity, something that a lot of teenagers do not get. So definitely take that into your homeschool. I certainly will, and continue to inspire hope in other people. What a great purpose and what a great pursuit to have in everything we do, say, and produce. So I really took some amazing things away from this interview. It was really good. I hope you were inspired and encouraged. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is linked forever in the description below, as well as I have included every single link Millie talked about in this episode, her website, and links to her social medias, so be sure to go follow her. Definitely someone you want to continue to follow, especially if you enjoyed her episode here today. And we will be back next week with another very special interview from another author, continuing this encouragement that we've been going off of with talking with inspiring homeschoolers. She's another amazing author, so I'm so grateful to share with you her interview. My release date, just a note here, will be switched to Friday. So look out for new episodes every Friday. I just needed one extra day. Thursday was a little too close to Wednesday, which is a big day for me at school. So we're going to switch to Friday and hopefully continue to stay consistent over the next few weeks into the next year. So thank you all for taking time out of your day to listen to us. I will see you all next week.